Once, in a peaceful village, there lived an old man named Mr. Barnes. He was a quiet man who lived in a large house with a beautiful garden. Inside, his house was filled with old wooden furniture, soft rugs, and shiny silver ornaments on the shelves. Even though Mr. Barnes had a lovely home, he lived all alone. His wife had passed away many years ago, and he had no children. His only company was his loyal dog, Buddy, and a few kind neighbors who sometimes helped him around the house. As time passed, Mr. Barnes noticed something strange. His eyes weren't as sharp as they used to be. At first, it was a small blur, like looking through a foggy window. But soon, his vision grew worse, and each day, the world around him became more and more unclear. One morning, Mr. Barnes woke up and realized he could no longer see. He was blind. Scared and confused, he called for help. His neighbors came quickly, and he asked them to find a doctor who could help him regain his sight. The next day, a doctor named Dr. Miller arrived. He was a tall man with a serious face, but the villagers whispered that he wasn't very honest. Still, Mr. Barnes had no choice but to trust him. Dr. Miller examined Mr. Barnes and nodded. "I can help you see again," he said, "but it will take time, and I will need to be paid once you are cured." Mr. Barnes, desperate to see again, agreed. "I'll pay whatever you ask if you can make me see again," he said. Dr. Miller returned each day to treat Mr. Barnes. He gave him eye drops, medicines, and gently rubbed his eyes. But while he worked, Dr. Miller's greedy mind was planning something else. He began to notice the valuable silver ornaments in the house, the soft rugs, and even the small clock on the shelf. Dr. Miller couldn't resist the temptation. Every day after Mr. Barnes's treatment, he would slip a small item into his bag and leave, thinking no one would ever notice. Weeks passed, and Mr. Barnes's vision slowly improved. He could make out shadows and light, and soon he could see shapes. His heart filled with hope, and he was excited to see his home again. Finally, after many weeks, Mr. Barnes opened his eyes fully. The world around him came into focus, and he could see clearly once more. But something was wrong. His precious silver ornaments were gone, and many other items seemed to have disappeared too. Confused and worried, Mr. Barnes wondered what had happened. He knew something wasn't right. Later that day, Dr. Miller arrived, smiling. "Mr. Barnes, your treatment is complete. You can see again, and now it's time to pay me," he said, holding out his hand. But Mr. Barnes shook his head. "I can see again, but my home looks empty. My things are missing. I won't pay until I understand where they've gone." Dr. Miller was angry. "You promised to pay me. I've restored your sight, and now you must give me my money." Mr. Barnes stayed calm. "Yes, I can see now, but I no longer see my treasures. It seems to me that when I was blind, my home was full of beautiful things. Now that I can see, they are gone. Dr. Miller, furious, decided to take Mr. Barnes to court, sure that the judge would force him to pay. In court, Dr. Miller explained the situation. This man owes me a large sum of money for healing him, and he refuses to pay. The judge then asked Mr. Barnes to explain his side. The old man spoke softly. "Your Honor, the doctor says he has cured me, and it's true that I can see again. But when I was blind, my home was filled with precious things, and now they are missing. So I believe I am not fully cured because I cannot see what was once there." The judge listened carefully and thought for a moment. Then he looked closely at Dr. Miller. "Doctor," the judge said sternly, "it seems to me that you have been dishonest. Instead of curing this man, you have taken advantage of him." Dr. Miller tried to argue, but it was no use. The judge ordered that all of Mr. Barnes's belongings be returned, and Dr. Miller was punished for his greed. Mr. Barnes was grateful. His eyesight was restored, and his home was once again filled with the things he loved. He thanked his neighbors for their help and continued to live peacefully with Buddy by his side. From that day on, Mr. Barnes never let anyone take advantage of him again, and he was happy to be able to enjoy the beauty of his home and garden, knowing he had learned a valuable lesson about trust and honesty.